Chapter 4. A Fork in the Road. Zithusula stood nervously in front of Queen Xitalia, doing his level best to appear as aloof and ambivalent as he possibly could. The Queen, however, tasting blood in the water, leaned forward from her throne, with eyes growing narrow.
What I expect from you, Zithusula, are real-world results. Instead, all you feed me is meaningless jargon and technobabble. I'm starting to wonder what this so-called collaboration is really all about. Care to enlighten me?
Despite his best efforts, Zithusula caught himself clearing his throat awkwardly.
My Queen, I truly do wish that there was another way. But, well, progress in science is not something you can just rush or cut corners on, regardless of how much you may desire to do so. It yields results only when all the necessary work has been done, no matter how long or arduous the road. My Queen, only an unrelenting commitment to the scientific method will lead us to the fountain of knowledge that you so richly deserve, and knowledge, as well you know, equals power.
Zithusula shuffled in place nervously before continuing.
Trust me, my Queen. The time I have spent with the good doctor has yielded truly remarkable progress. In the years to come, I have no doubt the fruits of that knowledge will bear a bountiful harvest, while I continue to master the dark arts of neural mechanics. All I ask of my Queen in return is the humble wisdom of her patient forbearance.
Xitalia relaxed back onto her throne, as if everything now made perfect sense.
Years, you say? Well, when you put it like that, I find myself in violent agreement. For is it not indeed my wisdom, hard-earned over countless millennia, that has taught me to know the difference between the judicious application of my own queenly patience and the dim-witted idiocy of a gullible fool?
Zithusula narrowly managed to avoid taking an involuntary step backwards, as the Queen continued to regale him with her wrath.
So then, I ask you now, Zithusula, which do you suppose me to be, the former or the latter? But wait, I'll save you the embarrassment of answering me with yet another lie, and instead make this as clear as I possibly can to a recalcitrant Shihari child, who apparently still believes that he can outwit his own mother. You will demonstrate to me actual real-world proof of the progress you have made, for all the time you have so far invested with the good doctor, and to be presented and delivered within the next 5 days. Failing that, your farcical so-called collaboration will be brought to an abrupt and brutal end permanently. Now get out of my sight and don't return until you have something truly useful to show for it.
Xitalia watched the back of her rapidly retreating Xihari scientist with a grim sense of satisfaction. That one was always going to be trouble, and she knew the truth of it right from the very beginning. After all, who in their right mind would choose to study deep Xicadian history, and almost before they had even managed to climb out of their egg sac? It simply wasn't natural. A Xihari liberal conservationist was, by definition, a contradiction in terms. Worse still, he seemed unnervingly similar to that ancient pain-in-the-arse Ximodian 97, and in a disturbingly large number of ways. That alone was a deeply troubling thought. The last thing she needed right now was another Xihari revolutionary thinking they could make a difference. Yet it simply could not be denied. He possessed a once-in-a-millennia brilliance. No, it very much appeared she really had little other choice but to extract as much of his untapped genius as possible before he crossed the line and simply became more trouble than he was worth. Queen Xitalia let out a long-suffering sigh as she continued to ponder the Xihari scientist's secretive machinations. The problem, of course, was she couldn't help but feel she was missing something important. And if her long list of lives had taught her anything at all, it was her finely tuned instincts rarely led her astray. Dr. Xicadian was a known quantity stretching back nearly 7 millennia, even if he didn't know the truth of it himself. It seemed extremely doubtful then that this collaboration was anything other than what Xithuselah had actually claimed it to be. Indeed, the good doctor had vehemently resisted participating in this so-called research right from the start. No, as far as she was able to determine, Xicadian's reluctant disposition remained completely unchanged, and was only kept in check by the simple fact that she herself had quite literally bullied him into it. The bottom line was this: the numbers simply didn't add up, so delivering an ultimatum to put up or shut up was exactly the right play. It was going to be very interesting indeed to see what, if anything, came of it. Of course, there was always the remote possibility he was sitting on something really big, but due to his pitifully idiotic political views, refused to share it with the rest of the nest. Well, whether or not she got to see inside the bizarre mind of Xithuselah's delusional clusterfuck of brains, he would soon find himself at a fork in the road, with one of them offering a much shorter future than the other. So, choose wisely, my naive young scientist. Choose wisely. The all too familiar hum of the counter-surveillance measures kicked quickly back into life as Xithuselah earnestly scurried his way into the doctor's clinic.
I'm telling you, Xicadian, things are coming to a head. I either deliver some meaningful progress to Xitalia, or all of this is over for good. I might also hasten to add that I have a strong suspicion that it is not only our collaboration that is on the line here, but my actual life as well.
The doctor was just about to tell the young Xihari scientist he was being overly melodramatic, but immediately realised such words would have sounded contemptuously patronising even to his own ear. No, he owed the scientist better than that. Still, as much as he liked this clever young Xihari, there was no personal guilt or responsibility he need burden himself with here. Xithuselah had made his own bed long before Xicadian had ever decided to bring him in. In fact, when it came right down to it, that was precisely why he had chosen him in the first place. Xithuselah was neither a fool or a coward, so Xicadian seriously doubted he would try to play this off as if the imminent threat to his life was some sort of shocking, unethical trap the doctor had somehow managed to manipulate him into. No, the scientist was simply trying to use the threat as an emotional bargaining chip, and, as such, Xicadian knew exactly where this conversation was about to go next. Unless, that is, he was able to head him off at the pass.
What exactly do you expect from me, Xithuselah?
The doctor proclaimed, with an exasperated wave of his forelimbs.
Yes. I will concede that in a very limited sense we have made tangible progress, at least in terms of understanding the capabilities and mechanics of the quantum goo, as you seem to prefer calling it. However, the simple fact of the matter is, its physical composition remains an impenetrable mystery that, despite our best efforts, appears to sit well beyond the reach of the scientific method.
Xicadian shook his head ruefully.
No, I'm very sorry, Xithuselah, but as things stand right now, I see no practical or useful application for what we have come to learn, and therefore I am regretfully of a view that our collaboration has reached its natural conclusion. We have achieved as much as I think it is possible for us to achieve, and what knowledge we have so far managed to procure tells me it should forever remain a secret. Our species is simply not ready for such revelation, and in all probability, never will be.
Zethusela glared defiantly at his colleague, clearly not yet ready to concede the point, or at least not the whole of it.
Doctor, you are right, of course, that what we have so far managed to learn would very likely spell disaster for the entire Xicadian species, were it ever to actually enter the public domain. I also have to somewhat reluctantly agree that our lack of progress in understanding the material properties of the quantum goo means our ability to harness it through, say, synthetic fabrication remains a complete fiction that science will almost certainly never be able to penetrate. However,
"Here it comes," Xicadian thought to himself grimly.
Let us speak frankly, Doctor. There still exists a potential application that remains infuriatingly unexplored, only because you yourself have been unwilling to take that last crucial step. It is not the loss of my own life that I fear, but the waste of its potential. I have danced at the edge of my annihilation for most of my life, such that it is, and I've chosen to do so because I am determined to make a difference. No, I'm very sorry, Dr. Xicadian, but you cannot legitimately argue ethics or Hippocratic oath, as within these very walls sit tanks that grow Xixolotl clones, whose body parts and organs are harvested, to benefit the privileged Xihari few. Now please understand, I am not offering pious judgment, and even if I was, it would certainly not be upon you but on the queens themselves, who long ago adopted this biological technology in order to improve both the length and quality of life of their own Xihari children.
Zethusela's expression became almost comically plaintive.
No, all I'm asking of you, Doctor, is one final experiment, that when one of your Xixolotl clones becomes non-viable, we attempt to transfer its mind to my newly developed mesh quantum brain technology, rather than just callously leaving it to die. Please, Doctor, try to understand we are talking about a mind with no past or future, but a mind nonetheless, and one of complex neurological sophistication. A mind that may yet open the door to a truly sentient machine, whose capabilities can then be extended far beyond even our wildest imaginings.
Dr. Xicadian raised up his forelimbs instinctively, as if to defend himself from some dangerous, unseen assailant.
I might want to remind you that there are far worse things than death, Zethusela. My fear is not that this should fail, but that it might actually succeed, and neither you or I know exactly what it will mean or where it will lead. Scientists are not gods, and a scientist who thinks that he is neither. So what are you, Zethusela, scientist or god?
I am exactly what you think I am, Dr. Xicadian, and it is for that reason alone I wish to shine a light into the impenetrable dark. If we don't like what we see, then we can close that door forever. Who knows? Maybe there won't be anything there to see anyway. Then at least we will truly know that we are at the end of the road. Please, I'm begging you, Doctor, don't choose the path of ignorance, not when we have already come so far. Just one more experiment, even if it turns out to be the last one of my life. And let's try not to forget, my good doctor, that it was you who found me, not the other way around. I only seek to finish what you yourself started.
Xicadian shook his head forlornly, but no longer tried to defend himself from the scientist's relentless rhetorical barrage.
All right then, Zethusela, have it your own way, just like always. One last experiment it is, and may the gods of Xanos Prime have mercy on our souls.
Well, where exactly is he then?
Queen Xitalia's Zimatiri body slave wore a panicked and trapped expression upon his face.
My queen, the trace logs would strongly suggest that he is currently located at the Grand Palace of Gathering.
Xitalia's mandibles flared wide in utter disbelief.
Surely you are mistaken. Recheck the logs, and assuming you like both your job and your life, I highly recommend that you don't mess this up a second time.
But my queen,
pleaded the body slave desperately.
I swear there is no mistake. Zethusela really is at the Grand Palace of Gathering, and it appears that he has been there for almost 2 whole days. Our own intelligence assets say that he has already petitioned and received an audience with all the other Xylectial queens.
Petitioned for what exactly?
Xitalia's voice had now taken on a very dangerous tone.
Well, my queen, it does very much appear that he has been accepted into the Rangers and as such is now a legal vassal of the Supernest itself.
Xitalia remained deathly silent, but her eyes looked like they were in real danger of exploding out of her head. The body slave withered visibly under the heat of her smouldering gaze.
Why, that traitorous, miserable little lice-worm! I should have had him put to death and fed to my Xylinetti drones the very moment he crawled out of that putrid and ill-fated little egg sack of his.
Xitalia felt a sudden compulsion to start breaking things, and instinctively grabbed at a large watering vase one of the servants was unfortunate enough to be using right at that particular moment. She hurled it with considerable force at a nearby wall, but it was snatched out of the air by an automated cleaning bot. The small, multi-limbed machine safely set the vase back down onto the floor. Xitalia, eyeing the bot furiously, began to scream with the sound of 1,000 shrieking sirens. Everyone who had not yet already done so hastily evacuated the royal chamber. Apart from that is the unfortunate Zimatiri body slave, who heroically held fast to his post. The Queen noted with some considerable amount of contempt. His legs were visibly shaking, and his eyes were tightly shut. Fractions of a second later, Xicanda 163, the Queen's hulking chief Zihari bodyguard, came skidding into view, his 2 four-limb mounted pulse guns pointing directly at the head of the petrified slave.
"Just give the word, my queen,"
Xicanda declared robotically. In an act of supreme willpower, Xitalia stoically reconstructed her composure.
Stand down, Xicanda, and prepare for my immediate transit to the Grand Palace of Gathering. Send a priority notification to all the senior Electials demanding an urgent mandatory audience in order that we might discuss the legality of Zethusula's secondment to the Rangers and my apparent exclusion from that process. Go.
Xitalia simply couldn't believe it. Not only had he failed to show up for his scheduled presentation, he had quite literally abandoned his post and clandestinely defected to the Rangers. Of all things, the Rangers. Just imagine that. Zethusula, a 7-brained scientist working at the reservation, planting trees and shoveling slimeworm excrement. If it were not such an outrageous affront, she could almost have found it to be farcically hilarious. Well, she had to give him credit for the sheer creative audacity of the move. When all was said and done, it was something she might actually have been able to predict, and perhaps even should have, given his bleeding heart save the planet from the terrible Xicadian plague mentality. Why, oh why, hadn't she had this troublemaker killed long ago? Getting rid of him now was going to be much more difficult. Difficult, but not impossible. And maybe her legal challenge might yet be successful. Well, maybe. But that was definitely not something she should pin her hopes on. The other queens were no doubt loving every moment of this, and would probably do everything they could to keep him under their collective protection, even if only to spite her. Xitalia eyed the watering vase furiously. This was not exactly turning out to be the day that she had been hoping for.
Xicanda, one more thing before you leave. Shoot that damn cleaning bot.